Alright, hello and welcome to a Revenant analysis video. So this is going to be a discussion video where I go over all of the abilities and the details that we know about them of Revenant, who is the newest upcoming Warframe, and we're just going to kind of discuss them and go over them and whether or not I think they're going to be good and what's going to make them good or bad, etc, etc. If you guys enjoy this type of video, be sure to let me know, as I think discussion videos could be potentially interesting to employ for future content. But yeah, let's just get started. So first and foremost, as far as I am aware, Revenant's abilities do not have official names yet, so we're just going to have to more so talk about what they do. And his first ability allows him to take control of enemies, much like Nyx's one. However, it is not limited to only one enemy, and you can take control of a number of enemies up to a cap that we do not as yet have a definition for. So it is a limited amount of enemies you can take control of. Enemies under the effects of this can still be killed while under it, and enemies killed under the effects of this will either turn into traps or give you shields/overshields if you kill them with your 4. This ability, by far, I think is going to be the weakest one in Revenant's kit pretty easily, barring any unfortunate changes with his 2, 3, or 4. And that's because it compares with Nyx's one. Nyx's one just isn't very useful, and that's purely for the reason that enemies are bad at killing enemies. We've seen that with Nyx's one, with Necros's 4. Anytime there are enemies fighting enemies, they are abysmal at killing one another. That's just how Warframe works, so an ability that tries to capitalize on that is just really not going to work out with the current way Warframe is. Along with that, I don't see the trap aspect being particularly useful, and I don't think that the main survival method of this Warframe is going to be shields, because that just seems a tad ridiculous to me. If it gave energy back to you whenever you killed enemies with your 4, it would probably be like a really cool synergy, and you'd want to spam your 1 a lot, and you could probably justify maybe even using like a natural talent on this Warframe, but shields just really aren't worthwhile in kind of the history of Warframe as it stands anyway. Moving on, though, we have his 2. So his 2 compares with the Amisha's 1 most closely because it's an Eidolon shield that can take a certain number of hits after you cast it. For those that are not aware of the Amisha is an Archwing. It is the best Archwing by far for doing most missions, albeit it is not the fastest. The Amisha has an incredible roster of abilities that, if you just transferred those to an on-the-ground Warframe, it would be the single most busted Warframe to ever fucking exist, and it would be absolutely incredible. So, any ability comparing with anything the fucking Amisha does is going to be pretty fucking good. This nullifies incoming damage and stuns any foe unfortunate enough to attack Revenant. So that, just by itself, very, very good. With that, you also get a discount on your 1 down to costing nothing whenever enemies are stunned by this ability, and it's just an incredible ability overall. Like, from what we've seen on the dev stream, it's just the Amisha's 1, and you also get a stun out of it. So one of the best abilities in the game, plus another thing, is going to be very incredible. I think this is going to definitely be the main way that Revenant stays alive. And in the event that it also gives him status immunity, like the Amisha gets from its 1, that's going to be even better, as status immunity is usually quite useful, especially because it can protect you from knockdowns. Anyway, moving on to his 3, which is a little bit worse. This is an invincible rush that steals health and shields. This compares very closely to Hydroid's 2 in terms of movement. However, it can be cancelled, and much like Hydroid, you can use this ability during Revenant's 4. So, or rather, for Hydroid, of course, it would be during his 3, but you see what I mean. It could be used during other abilities. This looks really fast. The good thing about this, I think, is that even at what appeared to be base stats that they were showing on the dev stream, this was really quick and went a good range. That, being fast in Warframe, is very useful. That's a thing that we do constantly, as it turns out. Moving quickly from place to place is kind of Warframe's shtick, so having a Warframe that's very good at doing that is just going to be useful. The main thing for this, though, I think, is going to be doing movement during your 4. And with that, let's talk about his 4. So his 4 originally was this giant AoE put all enemies to sleep thing that I was very much not jazzed about because it seemed pretty useless. Thankfully, it has changed completely to a giant channeled spinning laser attack. This has been compared by the devs directly to Mesa's 4, which is a very, very favorable comparison, and you can hold click to increase power while you're spinning. The movement while doing this appears to not be particularly restricted. It seems like you just can't jump, and then otherwise you retain most of your speed on the ground. But the thing that I would caution about any excitement about this ability is that it also compares very closely with Ember's 4. Ember's 4 and Mesa's 4 are very, very different. And the big difference between the two is that Mesa can mod her 4, additionally, besides just her Warframe mods, with secondary mods. Ember cannot do this. Ember does very, very little damage at any kind of like reasonably high level of enemy, and Mesa is a god monster that cannot be stopped and obliterates enemies in her path. That's a big discrepancy with just the addition of being able to mod your ability further. So I think whether or not this ability is going to be good, and by extension make Revenant good, is on whether or not it does enough damage. I have, admittedly, very little faith that DE can give this ability enough damage to be useful without making it an exalted weapon in terms of additional mods going on it. And those additional mods going on it do not have to be secondaries. They don't have to be like what Mesa gets. It can be shotguns, it can be rifles, it can be melee weapons, doesn't matter. As long as there's an additional modding layer, I think there's a lot of potential for this ability, but without it, the numbers that we usually see DE give Warframes outside of abilities that have a scaling functionality like Equinox's Maim or Octavia's one, the raw numbers they give usually kind of suck ass, if I'm being completely honest. Like, if you look at Oberon's 4, for example, that ability doesn't really do any damage. So this ability rides entirely on doing enough damage, but if it does enough damage, I think it brings Revenant together in a way that makes him incredibly useful for a wide variety of content. Having the ability to tank, be very fast, and do solid damage per second is all good stuff, and you'd also get the niche scenarios of using your 1 for the things like Nyx can, which is to take control of like Xmas enemies and get their buffs on you and the rest of your party. So with that, I think that's going to kind of wrap up the discussion I wanted to go over on Revenant. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video. I think there's definitely a lot of potential, and I think that I'm going to really enjoy him when he comes out, as long as his 4 is good. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed this, again, please let me know in the comments. Maybe we'll do more discussion type videos like this one. And if you hated it, also let me know. If you want to just like wait until things actually come out for me to talk about them. Which, I mean, obviously we're going to talk about him again whenever he's out. But you know what I mean. Anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. Later.